Question one, where did you work and what was your last position in the company?
So I worked for BP, and my last position in the company was engineering services manager for the midstream assets in Azerbaijan, Georgia, and Turkey.
Okay, next question. What was it like on a normal day at work and why did you choose to get into that line of work?
So I think the best thing to say about a normal day is every day was different. Every day was busy. Always coming into new challenges, the business just throwing different questions at you, and fairly unpredictable within a normalized frame. But that was what made it exciting and great, was that actually it wasn't predictable. And going home at the end of the day having fixed the technical problems that the business had. And why did I get into that line of work? Well, it took me 30 years to get to being an engineering services manager. But it just was a natural progression through the various roles that I've had over the years. And it was great because it encompassed everything from some things that have got really close to my heart, like process safety and integrity management, but also projects, providing new projects. So we did some fairly big sort of multi-million-dollar projects that I was accountable for, and actually spending the company's money wisely. So it's just it got me out of bed in the morning, got me excited. So I suppose that's kind of where I ended up there.
Okay. What has your experience been like working in a predominantly male workforce?
So I have to say, when I started work 31 years ago, I was the only female engineer in the company, and I've had a lot of positions where I've been, it's not even predominantly, I've been the only woman. When I went offshore as an offshore installation manager, I was frequently the only woman on the platform. So, and then, so that's kind of been my experience. So what's it been like? It's a bit like being at home for me. I had 3 brothers, so I grew up in a predominantly male-dominated household. So I suppose for a long time I didn't see this as being anything other than abnormal, because it had been like that at home. It was like that when I was doing my A-levels at school. It was predominantly guys doing science, predominantly guys at university. It's just the way that it's been. And you get used to the fact that men work differently from women. Tend to be, women are always looking to try and keep each other equal, whereas men are much more hierarchical. So you do have to kind of learn what's just not personal, it's just the way they are.
Okay. Why did you choose to study chemical engineering and at which university?
So I chose to study chemical engineering. I was very lucky that back in 1980, Women in Science and Engineering was born, and they ran some summer schools, which one was at Imperial College, which I applied for, and I went along to that, and it was a week basically finding out about all different sorts of engineering. I was just a kid that was good at science and maths, and so I had just thought engineering was a logical step, and I didn't really know what branch of engineering was going to be me. Having been on that 1 week's course, found out about this thing called chemical engineering I'd never heard of, and to be honest, I don't think anybody back in my school had heard of. And I thought, this sounds really exciting and sounds like the kind of thing that's plays to my skills and I'm quite interested in. And what was great was they obviously thought I was quite promising too, because I got an award on the last night for being the most promising chemical engineer on the course. So that's why I went on to study chemical engineering, and I went to UMIS, which is now Manchester University.
Okay, interesting. The next question, I think you kind of covered it in your last answer, but we'll go through it anyway. How did you get to know about chemical engineering when you were at school?
So I think I have covered that, which is, it was just a poster that went up on the wall that said, this is WISE, Women in Science and Engineering, and come along and find out about engineering. And so I was very lucky that I had a very enlightened female physics mistress who really pointed me at that, and that's how I found out about chemical engineering, because pretty much nobody really knew what it was, and where I was living was nowhere near any kind of chemical industry.
Okay, next question. What are your hobbies and interests?
What are my hobbies and interests? I have a lovely golden retriever who is my baby. So I like her and getting out and walking with her. I'm quite crafty, I suppose. I like to bake. I do paper crafts. I sew, do that kind of thing, and I love to travel and take photographs.
Interesting. As a female engineer, do you have any concerns with being limited, or do you feel that this no longer exists?
I think it's not as hard as it used to be. So I mean, I've spent a lot of my life butting my head up against that ceiling, and I don't. Do I feel it still exists? No, I don't. I mean, I don't think it completely exists, but it exists in some people's minds, and that's the problem. The issue is, when you're going for a role at the next level up, it's what's normal for the guy that's hiring you, because pretty much I've never been hired by a woman. It's always been a guy. And if you've got a guy who appreciates diversity, who understands that actually having somebody with a slightly different perspective can add value to the team, then that's great. And so, from time to time, it's been a real advantage being female, because they've said, oh, let's bring something different, and that's great. But then if you've got somebody who's a bit more traditional, a bit more dyed in the wool, a bit more in the mold of I hire somebody who looks like me, then it's really difficult. So I think there are concerns for women getting ahead, but I think it's slowly changing.
And that's an interesting perspective. I've never actually thought about it that way.
So it just depends who it is.
Last question. What are your future aspirations?
So I've I'm now moving into a new phase of my career. I've just joined a small consultancy, which my husband set up, so there's now two of us. And so we're thinking about moving into the phase of doing consultancy work. So I'm quite keen to get involved with perhaps more of the learning and development side of industry. And I've done lifelong mentoring, so I've been mentoring or working with schools initially, and working with technicians and young engineers all my career. And I'm looking for a way to kind of meld that with our consultancy business to kind of take it on a bit further. But possibly not working quite so many hours a week.
Well, that concludes the interview. Thank you for taking the time to answer our questions and supporting the cause.
No problem at all. It's very nice to be talking to you.
Thank you.